said, you know, that's
we'll just check the time. Where are we? 9:28, fraction early. So Gary Ellis, he's all online. There he is, waving his hand. So he's going to control some of the meeting. So that's good. Janisha, are we allowed to start a minute early, or is 9:30 the time?
I think you have to start on 9:30, unfortunately.
Okay, no, that's fine. Must be only 30 seconds now. I've got my phone here. I've got a hotline to Janisha on my phone here, councillor. So any misbehaving, she's got the dump button. I can't control that from here. So that's how we're going to control things today.
Are you expecting misbehaving?
No, not at all. You're well behaved. Not. Right, I'm preempting my phone's about to flick over to 9:30. So welcome, all welcome Mayor Webber, councillors, members of the public, staff to Performance and Monitoring Meeting 22-2. This is being streamed via Zoom under the traffic red light conditions we're currently in, made April the 4th roll on. First up, I call for any apologies that don't appear to have been notified of any. Got a full muster, have we? Yep. No one's leaping up and down. Right. I now call for declarations of interest, councillors. If you've read the agenda, if there's anything there that sticks out that you wish to declare now, now's the time to do that. Record it in minutes. No, thank you. For any members of the public or press who are watching in for the Waka Kotahi presentation, there has been some delay in that, and so that will be rescheduled for May the 5th. So although it was advertised as part of the agenda, that won't be in today's meeting. So with all that taken care of, we move into public forum and we welcome Kelsey Symes. Is Luke with us as well?
Yes, I can see he's on.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Luke. And Sergeant Wayne Hunter. So, Kelsey, do you want to kick this off? Do you want to lead? Yep.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I'm Kelsey Symes, and we've also got Luke Fahey on the call. We're both local Pongakawa residents, and Senior Sergeant Wayne Hunter has also kindly joined us this morning. Wayne is the head of traffic police for the Western Bay of Plenty. As you'll be aware from the letter I wrote, which has been circulated, we've got an issue in our community with boy racers, and their favourite place to skid is outside of my house at the corner of Pongakawa Station Road and Old Coach Road intersection. I'll just share my screen. Oh, actually, I'll get Luke to show later on.
I forwarded your correspondence to all the councillors yesterday, Kelsey, and they've all done a bit of research on via as much as they can on Google Maps and all the rest of,
excellent.
Of that situation. Yep.
So you would have seen in the pictures, the layout of the intersection is a perfect skid pad area for boy racers. There's plenty of room for spectators and parking. And about once a month, we get a huge event, and you might have had a look at the YouTube clips I sent out. We get 100 or more cars and around 300 people gathered on the corner. It's really hard to predict when these events will occur. It's my understanding that they're organised through a private Facebook group, and Luke's actually had a go at joining one of these groups, but it appears to be a group within a group. So you need to be invited by an existing member to get through to the next stage. And they do that to just keep it locked down and keep the police out of the Facebook group and keep narcs out. So obviously when they have one of these big nights, it's really intimidating and disruptive. I've got a young family and we never get much sleep when there's skids on. And even when it's not a huge night, we regularly have groups of 5 to 10 cars on the corner any night of the week, which is a real nuisance. And Pongakawa is a busy area. There's a lot of industry around here. There's heaps of trucks on the road for horticulture, farming and forestry. I just can't believe nobody's been hit by a truck yet. We held a community meeting at the school hall last month where we heard from Wayne about how powerless the police are against the boy racers. And so we believe that the only way to manage this issue is to change the intersection. And I can see Luke's sharing his screen now. So Luke's drawn up some suggested plans of how we think this intersection should be changed. And Luke's going to talk to those plans now, and then we'll hear from Wayne to get a police perspective on the issue and hear why there's actually not a lot that they can do to shut it down. So I'll hand over to you now, Luke.
Yeah, g'day, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm also on board with Kelsey on this, local resident and ratepayer and business owner. So yeah, a few concerns around this for family and just normal day-to-day stuff in Pongakawa. So I'm not sure whether you can see that screen that I've shared. I've got basically an intersection snapshot there. Cool. Yeah, so there's a few dimensions on there that I've chucked in, and it just sort of reiterates what Kelsey's saying. It's got a 20-meter diameter area within that intersection that allows for donuts and guys doing standstill burnouts. So yeah, there's also a good 3.5 to 4 meters strips. Some areas there's 6 meters of area for parking and for cars to back up to use their headlights to shine into the intersection. That just gives them a nice big platform for everyone to stand around. And as you'll see from those YouTube videos that the Fonterra trucks have picked up, that a lot of people can fit into that sort of area and congregate. So what we've looked at and what we've discussed at the community meeting a few weeks ago, we've looked at how to minimise the likelihood of these guys wanting to use the intersection. So the first thing that we sort of feel is some islands coming into the intersection from all directions. So you'll see those in the red marks there. So basically that will reduce that intersection to the minimum required for trucks, etc., to still pass through, as required. And it will it'll stop these guys rather from being able to do a full donut in the middle of that intersection without damaging their vehicles, and just, should deter them a lot. The yellow lines that we've chucked in here, so they're basically barriers that we feel, if these areas were cordoned off and it was narrowed down to sort of the requirements for traffic, that's going to reduce the amount of area that they can have, and they're going to end up, if they try to do skids in that area, they're going to damage their cars, and they've got extra obstacles, so they're not going to be able to do those donuts. It'll also avoid the cars from being able to park off the side of the road, so it will really just make it not as easy for people to gather around. In some, there'll be 2 frames in mind here that could allow them to safely be behind the barrier, which some of them will think is a good thing. But if their cars can't get in there, then there's going to be no lights. They can't light up the intersection, and less people will be able to congregate there. Obviously we talked about security footage, and I think what Wayne will touch on there, it's obviously going to be handy to get something like that underway, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of admin, and it's very difficult to prove who's in the car at the time and driving, and whether the people are standing around are actually breaking any laws. So so that's the gist of the intersection alterations that we'd like to see. We feel it would deter them. So I'll hand you over to Wayne. Cool, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Yes, I did go to that meeting, and I was pretty direct with the locals. My view was that the locals thought that the police were going to be the be and end all of it. But when you look at those YouTube videos that you should have seen, again in the milk tanker, 99% of those people there are not breaking the law. We can't do anything with them. The only ones that we can deal with are the ones who are doing the actual burnouts, which is probably 2 to 3 cars out of the whole lot. So there is not a lot we can do about the people parking up with Luke and Kelsey, we have devised this is a better way of being able to deter them from this intersection. You might say they're going to go somewhere else, but we're going to cross that bridge when we get to it. I'd just like to point out that we had the issues in the Waikato, and last weekend they had a major operation to deter the boy races. There was 500 of them there. It took 50 police staff. They had to come from the Waikato counties, Manukau, Western Bay, Plenty, Rotorua and Taupo. That's a one-off, and that obviously just can't happen. And my concern is now that the heat is too much in Waikato, they're going to come to the Western Bay probably in the next couple of weeks, and we're not going to be able to do much about it because obviously the lack of staff. So sorting out this intersection, I think, is a priority, and that will go a long way to alleviate the local community problems with these boy races.
Great, thanks, Wayne. I'm flying a bit blind here with the screenshots up at the moment. I can't. So, Luke, do you want to take down your screen, your photos now? Right, there we go. And I've got some hands up, surely. So, that's your presentation, Kelsey?
Yes, yeah, I totally support what Kelsey and Luke are trying to achieve is to change the intersection so they can't park up, they can't do their skids. And right. As I said, if they go somewhere else, we'll sort that issue out when that does occur, if it does occur.
Right, I've got a few hands up from councillors, and then I'll turn over to perhaps Deputy Chief Executive Gary to comment on it. But before I do take comments, just from a personal point of view, I walked out of a function at Club Mount Maunganui last night, in the road between there and the hockey centre. I couldn't believe what was going on. I thought it was an accident happening. The tyres screeching, the smoke. I'm just a quiet country boy. I've never been experienced to it. And I knew this was coming up on the agenda, and I just saw it. And there was a number of people exiting the Club Mount Maunganui facility at the time, and these boy racers were just completely out of control. So frustrated that they don't play rugby anymore and take their frustrations out on the rugby field instead of they jump in their cars. But anyway, that's enough from me. Mark Dean.
Don,
Yeah.
Can I just jump in here, please? Yesterday we had, when people were going to talk, we had the hands up function on our screens.
Yep.
We cannot see who's waiting to talk. Can we ask the governance staff to be able to put that up? No, but we should be able to see who's waiting to talk.
Okay.
That's a function that can be put on here. If they could put it on, please, it would be helpful to know
well,
who's going to talk.
So
Sorry,
sorry,
it's all white here.
it's showing already for some.
Yeah.
You
Margaret,
just select
Yeah.
your participants button at the bottom and you'll be able to see the hands up.
Great. Okay, so I've got Mark Dean followed by Deputy Mayor John Scrimmager. So Mark Dean, you're first up.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Wayne, is there any possibility that we can prevent the sale of second-hand tyres? Because it seems to me that these boy racers rely on cheap tyres being provided by the garages to be able to do their burnouts. When we lived up at Oropi, we had this issue regularly, and it's actually gone away up there recently, but it was these cheap second-hand tyres. They even had people who have got tyre changing machines in their sheds that enable this to carry on. And is there any way we can restrict the sale of those cheap second-hand tyres?
I suppose the only way you're going to be able to do that is to get the government of the day to change the laws to ban selling these tyres, and I doubt whether that would ever occur. They would look at it, I assume, from a perspective that there's a lot of people who would need to buy cheap tyres, not just boy racers, and so I doubt whether that would ever occur.
Right, we've got questions from John, Grant and Margaret now. John.
yes, I guess starting, thanks for the presentation, but I was pretty disappointed, to be frank, with Wayne's explanation that the police can't deal with this. Now, I accept the the challenge that's been explained. I was at the meeting a few weeks ago as well and heard about it there as well as this morning. And while I agree with them that most of the people gathered there are not breaking the law, they wouldn't gather there if it wasn't for the clowns carrying on as they do. And so I think I pay good taxes along with a whole lot of other New Zealanders, and on the basis that the police keep our communities safe. And I think this needs to take a higher priority, not just here in this intersection, but like you've alluded to, Don, in our country. And I guess I could have another question for Wayne is, if we're going to resolve this by taking the onus off the police and alter the intersection, is the cost of that going to come out of the police budget? Thank you.
As you are aware, we have a very limited resource. We have a lot of calls for service. Road policing is only part of it. I can tell you we do not have a lot of staff that work on a shift. I've got a total of 27 staff to cater for the whole of the Western Bay for every shift. So if you work that out, there's not a lot of staff. Staff safety is my most important and my area commander's issue, that we do not go to something like this one or two up. You have to have at least 4. A couple of my staff about a month ago went to Bell Road, just 2 of them, where the boy races were. They shouldn't have gone there, and they got bottles thrown at them. So they had to come out, obviously. It's just a staffing issue. We try, if we know that they're going to be there, we can organise some staff to assist from another shift to come in. But it's the thing is, we don't know when they're going to be there. So we can't just pull staff out of a hat at the last moment. So as I say, if we knew that they're coming in 2 or 3 weeks' time, we can organise a operation to deal with it. But when we just, like last weekend, we were told there was 400 cars at Pukahina. We knew nothing about that until it actually happened. That was, and so we had to try and deal with that, which we obviously couldn't. So as I said, it's a resourcing issue. We've only got so many staff that we can put into different places. And no, police wouldn't pay for helping out on the intersection payments anyways.
I could just comment, I did notice, as you say, you attended the function in Pukahina on Saturday with 3 staff vehicles. So yeah, and I do accept that that was in daytime rather than nighttime, but yes, it is, there is the opportunity to be present. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, if we know that something's going to happen in the future, we can actually roster people to do it. But we can't roster people on the basis that something may happen.
Okay, Grant, you've got a question?
Yeah. First of all, sorry I couldn't make your meeting, Kelsey and Luke. I had wanted to go to that, but anyway, I fully sympathise. I live up number 2 road, and we've got an intersection with number 2 and number 1 road, which gets exactly the same treatment as you get. It's covered in black skid marks, and even all the way down number 2 road, there's black marks. Whenever I see some kids, even in the middle of the day, 3 or 4 cars up there doing skids, I call the police. And
right, do you have a question for them?
And so this is happening all around our district, and you know, we've just sealed to Otani Wainuku and the car park, so you know, this is just moving around like Kelsey says. But my question is to Wayne, if we had maybe a mobile CCTV camera installed at some of these hotspots, would that footage allow you to prosecute some of these boy races if you had access to the footage and the number plates?
Absolutely. My view, because you obviously know we just had a gang funeral a few days ago, which I ran the operation on that. If we can get footage of a vehicle doing a slot, we call it sustained loss attraction, we can impound the vehicle. We don't have to prove who was driving it to start with. That's the first thing we always do. So we love to get footage of these cars doing these burnouts, because we can then just go in and we either, if they're on private property, we just get a search warrant from the judge. They gladly sign them. We go and ping the vehicle, take it for 28 days. And then we serve a 118 letter on the owner of the vehicle, who's got 14 days to give us the driver of the vehicle at the time. If they don't, then they go to court, and it's subject to up to a $20,000 fine. It sounds good, but they usually get a $100 fine. So yes, definitely, if anyone has any CCTV footage of a vehicle and gets their registration number, then I can guarantee that we will deal with it. The issue is that the boy racers now are aware of this and they're swapping their number plates around with each other. We're taking the number plates off or hiding the number plates. But definitely, if you've got a camera and footage, we will deal with it.
Okay,
Thanks,
that's
Wayne.
great.
Right, we've got a question for Margaret, and then looks like Luke wants to have one final word before I hand over to Gary Ellis. So, Margaret.
Right. Actually, I agree totally with Grant. And if we could get a movable CCTV camera, would be really worthwhile to put it in one of the hotspots that where we know we're going to have a problem from time to time. And I agree, it's all over our district. So, Wayne, I think you've got the most dreadful job to do. Young men with not fully developed brains and just playing silly fools. So one can sympathise, but the action is to take it back to the owner and to the parents, if at all possible. So could we actually at some stage, Don, put that on our agenda, that we look at a CCTV camera for where, in fact, the really serious hotspots are that are occurring all the time?
Yeah, well, staff will make notes from today, and that could well be one of them. Luke, do you want to have one last? I'll let you jump back in.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Just quickly on Mark's comment with the tyres, it's a good point. Unfortunately, these guys don't have budgets. Some of these cars are $40,000 twin turbo machines, and they're running 19-inch tyres, which are not a problem for them to pay $300 per tyre to have 10 minutes fun. And the other comment was just going back to trying to anticipate when these events are going to happen. I know, Wayne, you do have major issues with this, but so as Kelsey mentioned, I jumped into Facebook groups. I've joined that and follow it, and I've started taking notes on who's sort of initiating the meets and talking about them first in the evenings. They then go on to a Snapchat group. So there's no way to get involved. They change it constantly, and it's basically they'll just have a laugh about it and kick you out of the group, and then they'll go on to the next one. So, yeah, so that's those couple of comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke, for that further. Gary Ellis, do you want to just sum up Western Bay's view of this?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the presentation. So we have had a look at this, and I could probably get Jim to talk about it just at a high level, but there are some road safety issues relating to what is proposed. Jim, are you able to come online and just have a talk about what you and Callum have had a look at?
Just unmuting now. Can you hear us?
Oh, yeah, yep. Thanks. Yep.
Yep. Gary. So, as has been pointed out, this activity is occurring around the district on a lot of our rural roads and intersections. It's occurred in the past and seems to be ongoing. I had a question there. There's a light at that intersection, and I wondered whether that generated more desire for these people to congregate at night where there might be a light. And there are activities we've done in the past around car parks where we've built asphalt bunds, which tends to stop the donut activity, but it's limited and it cannot be done through the middle of intersections. So we've also tried to provide large aggregate seals to rough up the road, which we believe is not as desirable for the burnout activity. But on the other side of that, it does provide a much noisier road for the community. So there's issues in terms of how close residents are and how much they're affected. So it's something we've been aware of for a long time, but we really have a limited opportunity to do anything. And any infrastructure changes are quite expensive.
And Jim, if I could get maybe Callum, if you could just talk about, you've looked at the potential intersection issues, but the conflict between the speed environment and putting hard structures in the road.
Yeah, so the speed limit's 100k. So if we were to look at putting concrete median strips between down the centre line, that's not recommended in the technical specification which we typically use, which is Off-Road's Guide to Geometric Design. It does not recommend those type of features over 80 kilometers an hour. Even at 80 kilometers an hour, you need to put in separation of up between 500 millimeters and a meter, which the carriageway is just not wide enough to accommodate that. So to install concrete medians, we would need to drop the speed limit to probably 50 kilometers an hour. And it's unlikely that speed limit would be adhered to by, the majority of traffic.
Thanks, Callum. So Don, does that answer that? Gives a little bit of a technical view of the situation?
It does, and what Chelsea and Luke have highlighted today, and Grant's mentioned of other sites, and of course up by the Minden Lookout, it's just a total disgrace with black burnouts and rubbers and car bumpers, and Mark's talked about. So it is widespread. So I just wonder if maybe it's a case of shining a bit more light on this amongst the community, making people much more aware of it, and gathering the information we talked about, because we can't do these hard structures on every site where it appears to be occurring. So yeah, but you've certainly raised a key issue today, and it's not going away, and so it's going to have to be dealt with. So we're going to have to work alongside the police and other agencies to shine the light.
Don,
do you recommend anything else, Gary?
can I say something?
Oh, yep, I can. Far away.
If the general public sort of get involved in this, there is one hell of a we've got an issue, because these guys, they mean business. As we saw over in the Waikato, they smashed a windscreen in the truck. They let the milk out of the truck, and people's lives are at stake here if they go out and walk out and try and tell these idiots what they're doing. It's been suggestions that all the cockies get out there and have a roundup. Well, yeah, maybe that's probably be a better way. We just get in the tractors and clean them all up for that, but I'm not sure about that either.
Yeah, no, I wasn't quite suggesting vigilante type action. I was just making people more aware of what's going on. Margaret, I'll give you one final word before we close this topic off.
You're very kind. Don, up at the Minden, we've put in a CCTV camera. Can somebody tell me whether that's making any difference or not? And if it isn't, is there another one needed up there? Because I agree with you. It's been an antisocial environment and plus it's a beautiful environment, but ruined by the twits that go up there and misbehave. Is that CCTV camera not working? And if
Gary
it
Ellis,
is, do we need
Gary
to put
Ellis
I did a check back on the reports that we've given to you in the past about the timing of those cameras. What happens when the camera's in place? We will then pull out the footage if someone's asking for, particularly if the police go, we've had an event there, we would like the footage of that time, and then that footage gets pulled out and provided. But I'm not aware of anything that's come out of that site yet.
Okay, well, thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Wayne, for coming in and speaking to it today. Obviously, there's a lot of things to assess. Road speed limits, what can and can't be accommodated. But thank you for highlighting this to us. It's a growing problem. And as Kevin mentioned, that horrendous incident, the Waikato, is just not good. So thank you very much. We'll have to hand it back to staff and see what we can progress from here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Janisha, that won't take long. They just log off, do they?
Are we into the confidential now, are we? Sorry?
No. We're going to carry on with the recommendations and with the reports.
Oh, yeah,
David.
Yep. So you can just carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll carry on. Okay. So councillors and anyone viewing, as I mentioned earlier, the agended item from Waka Kotahi won't occur now. It's scheduled for May the 5th. So we'll move on from that. And I invite Group Manager to report, David Jensen, on the Group Manager Corporate Services report. David.
Good morning, Mr.
Page
Chair.
7. Sorry.
Good morning, elected members. So this report covers the financials to the end of February 2022 we look at income, we are $4.5 million lower than we had budgeted at that time of the year. A lot of that is due to the timing of subsidy revenue, which in turn is linked to our delivery of the capital program. I'll talk a little later about around how the capital program is tracking. However, in terms of revenue, it's looking more and more likely that as we're not able to deliver the full capital program, some of that subsidy revenue will not be collected this calendar year and will be out of this financial year, sorry, and will drift into the next financial year as those capital programs are actually worked on. The other key aspect of council's operating revenue that was below budget was financial contributions. So you'll recall in the last meeting we had a terrific month for financial contributions. Unfortunately, that hasn't continued, and we have had a bit of a lean month through February, and we are looking to see, we're talking with developers regularly to understand how we will look at year end with our financial contributions, but at this point in time, we are below budget for those financial contributions. With operating expenditure, similar story. So we are 4.7 million lower in operating expenses than we had budgeted. A lot of that is just due to operational contracts that we aren't able to get the work done with contractors, or there's timing issues, and there's similar issues with our salary budget. So we are under budget with our salary budgets. That's a mixture of not being able to fill roles as readily as we'd like to, and just timing around when some people are likely to come on board. Probably the main aspect of this report is around the capital program. So we've talked in the past around targeting a 90% delivery of our capital program. Gary and the team are finalising their forecast. We are looking like a little lower, so we are looking like we will target more of a 70% delivery rather than 90. Then Gary can talk to that. For some of the drivers behind that. That's very common across the sector. So we are hearing from most other local authorities having very similar problems delivering some large capital programs adopted during the LTP, and very tight market supplies and for contractors. It's very difficult to get that work done. In terms of debt, our net debt our total debt remains at 90 million at the end of February, and our net debt was 39.2 million at the end of February. The reason for that is that there was quite a significant drop in our net debt position at the end of February due to when the second instalment of our rates was due. So we bill our rates twice a year, and in February we brought in our second half of our year's revenue, and we draw down on that throughout the remainder of the financial year as we deliver on those capital programs and on the operational budget. So we are forecasting to draw down significantly on that cash. In terms of our hedging positions, we're well within policy. You'll remember from our audit and risk committee when Bancorp presented, we do test our positions on a monthly basis to make sure that the market's not getting away on us in terms of interest rates, and we feel we're in a very good position there. I'm happy to take questions on that report.
Thanks, David, for that. Mayor Webber, you had your hand up before. I see it's gone down. Are you happy? Kapai, good. Right, next. Looking for hands. Here we go. Grant, you're up.
Oh, just a quick question, David. Where do you reckon our net debt will stabilise at?
The main driver for where our net debt will be at year end will depend entirely on how we track with our capital program. It is quite an aggressive program. It's twice it's 50% more than we've ever delivered in the past, and we're struggling to spend some of the money. I think we will be in a better position at the end of March to properly understand. At the end of in the next performance and monitoring meeting after the quarter end, to properly understand how much of the capital program we'll be able to get through by the end of the year. But I think it's safe to say that we will not be able to deliver everything, and our net debt will be lower than we had forecast in our budget. But it's probably a little early to properly land on an exact dollar figure.
Thanks, David. Any further questions, councillors? Can't see any. Right, looking for some hands to go up for a mover and a seconder for David's report. I've got Mayor Webber, Alan Sol. I'll put that. All in favour. Just hands on the screen would be great. All in favour. Thank you. All those against? I declare it carried. Thank you. Right, David, you're up again. Page 9 of the agenda, Local Government Funding Agency Limited Quarterly Report.
So this report comes to the Performance and Monitoring Committee by virtue of us being a shareholder. We have a legal obligation to receive this report and publish it on our website. The LGFA does a fantastic job, and it continues to deliver really well for us in terms of really cheap lending, and they deliver a fantastic customer service. They are meeting most of their KPIs. There's a couple that there's 2 out of 10 that they are a little behind on, that they do forecast to be on track by year end. Probably the only thing to take away from this report is that the overall size of the LGFA's loan book is smaller than they had budgeted for. And that's just a reflection of the fact that it's not just our council that's struggling to deliver the full capital program and borrow money, it's every council across the country. So they are not lending as much to the sector as they had forecast.
Thanks, David. James, you've got a question?
Yeah, I refer to the note on page 12 that Wellington was the first council to take up the LGFA GSS loans last December. And I was wondering, following the resolution of this committee on the 2nd of December last year, have staff yet considered the merit in using such loans for our elder housing programme now that construction is underway?
In order to qualify for those bonds, a lot of work has to be done upfront, well before construction starts. So you have to have an audit program to make sure that you're meeting the criteria. You have to create the sort of social environmental KPIs that you will be measured against to make sure that you are continuously in compliance to meet the criteria. It's something that we will absolutely consider for projects going forward, but we probably weren't in a position to put the work up front for the work that we've already started. But for future programs that we believe that will meet the criteria, we'll absolutely will continue to progress how we could utilise that funding.
Yeah, just to add to that, Councillor Denyer, in terms of the benefit for councils that enter into that GSC, it's about a 5 basis points saving. Now, there is a significant amount of work required to maintain the reporting, etc., to go to LGFA, because they clearly need to report that information to the people that buy into those bonds, because they're doing it. They're often big insurance firms and that are doing it as part of their investment portfolio and reporting to their clients. So it's about 5 basis points. So it cuts into LGFA's funding by about a third. But at the moment, they're actually not issuing any. So they're just passing the haircut on for those issues, but because of getting it set up. So it is quite a bit of work on council to be able to report that. But as you say, it's something like Eastern Town or something that could be a good example of one to use in the future for us.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Henry in rural Katikati.
And what a lovely day it is out here. Just what you just said, David, about them limiting their ability, or the ability to lend as much as they did in the past. Is that likely to affect any short-term or slightly longer-term projects that we are involved with?
So what I was referring to earlier, Councillor Henry, was the fact that LGFA forecast how much they think they will lend to the sector based on LTPs. Most councils across the country are struggling to do everything they'd hoped to in their LTPs, which meant that the individual councils across the country are not requiring as much lending from the LGFA. If every council in the country could do the work, they would easily be able to access the money from the LGFA. It's more the fact that they just can't, so they don't need the money.
If there's one other factor in there as well, sorry, Councillor Henry, is with potentially the migration to the Three Waters transition, councils managing their treasury and borrowing requirements carefully, because they don't want to commit too long, and that's actually commented in the LGFA lending in their report, that their last couple of bond tenders have been for shorter durations, specifically due to that. So councillors are managing very carefully about long-term debt versus current debt in the anticipation of receiving a cheque back from the government.
Well, I didn't doubt that you wouldn't be. Thank you.
Right. Any further questions on that? Appeared to be none. I now call for a mover and a seconder for the Local Government Funding Agency quarterly report to December the 31st, 2021 be received. James Ding has got his hand up, followed by Monique Gray. There you go. Thanks, Monique. I'll put that all in favour. Raise your hand. Those against, I declare it carried. Thank you very much.
Excuse me,
Right,
Don. Excuse me,
Yes.
Don. I think we need to go back and have a mover and seconder for the first report as well from Corporate Services.
I think I did that.
Oh, sorry, then we missed it at our end. Apologies. Can you remind me who?
I had Mayor Webber and I had Anne Henry putting her hand up. She was the one, I think.
Apologies.
Henry Webber.
Thank you.
Yeah, Webber Henry, sorry.
I
Yeah.
think it was Alan Sol, sorry, Don.
Oh, Alan Salt was too. There you go. Well done. See, someone missed it.
Thank you.
Great. Right, now we're going to go into a messy transition, not messy, but a little transition. Murray, I'll take your question in a minute. I need a mover and a second to move into confidential. Thanks, Anne Henry, Murray Granger. I'll move that. All those in favour? Yes, hands up. I declare it carried. So now we need Janisha and just take a bit of advice.